What's up, everybody? This is Messiah Hill, and this is the scooter backflip. Oh, yeah! Woo!
Wait, Dad, do we have a podcast tonight?
Oh, yes. See, I'm gonna be late.
Here, you're gonna need this.
Thank you.
Hurry up.
Oh, what's up, everybody? Hey, we are live, Joey Yates, on this Thursday evening. What's happening, brother? Oh, I see Joey's lips are moving, but Joey's on pause. You're on mute, Joey.
Sorry, I was Tony, the Outsider's live right now, so I was busy watching his podcast.
You're streaming Tony's. What's Tony talking about?
He's in Joshua Tree right now.
Dude, lots of good things happen.
B1 Bikers live too.
Whoa, all the podcasters are live tonight. What is happening? Oh my gosh, what a great show. This is going to be fun. Everyone's hitting the YouTubes and the Facebooks tonight. And man, we have a full audience already, Joey. As always, the whole shot award is going out to Mullet Bikes out of Idaho. He says, I'm at my kid's band concert. I'll tune in as it is over. Thank you, Christian. Thank you, Ace, for jumping on. Nice. MTB Nick, what's up, buddy? He says, is this live? Oh, yes, we are live. We are live. MTB Nick holding down Holder Crooks out there. Who else is in here? MTB Tank made it. What's up, Tank? Good to see you, brother. We got MTB Kaz in the audience. Photographer Kaz, man. Always good to see Kaz. We got Steph Bautista on the line. What's up, Steph? Good to see you. I hope everything's going well with the wife's pregnancy. Riding Dirty is in here from Arizona. What's up, Eric? Congratulations on that new Izzo you got, sir.
You racing this weekend?
Yeah. Eric, are you racing this weekend? Are you going to the OTH over the hump? Lots of races going on this weekend. They're kicking it off. He's got the Panda Bear right there for the Unspoken brand. I love it. I love it. Octo Dad. Oh yeah, we got the other side of the globe tuning in. This is so good. Always good to see you, Octo Dad, in New Zealand, man. I just love that. MTB Nick 316. What's up, Joey? Folks, we got a great show for you tonight. Basically, Miles Wide is a mountain biker who's been in this business, in the industry, in the stoke, in the passion, the love of the sport for years. And we are able to get him on the show. He's responsible for creating sick products that we all can use out there when we're on the trails and on the bikes. Also has a sick lineup of bikes called Mullet Cycles, and you guys got to check these out because the geometry on these bikes are really legit, and he's got a great story to share about it, and I can't wait to introduce him to you. Before we jump into the show, a couple little quick things. There is an SSB kilowatt race this Saturday the 28th at in Orange County. If you guys want to sign up for that, go to Over the Hump OTH or raceoc.com. Sign up for the race. If you're an adult, it's $35 to race. You don't have to be an e-biker because there are analog bike races that day. And they also have kids races that day. It's a family day out there. And man, Joey, the kids races are only $15.
That's not bad at all. And the kids love it. Like doesn't matter. They just have so much fun, being in a pack of other kids. And I love watching kids races.
Yeah, it's so fun. They got Disney artists that are going to be out there for free kids painting. Oh, nice. They got rock climbing walls, jump houses. It's going to be a blast, and I'll be out there. Oh, what's this? Messiah Hill. He says, what's up? Messiah Hill is going to be on the races. I just entered him into the son. You're racing this weekend. He's in the 11-year-old category.
be for him this weekend?
Yep. He's racing. He's racing. Oh, we got Debbie Keogh, producer Deb's on the line too. Says, let's get this party started. Heck yeah, for sure. Anything else, Joey, that we need to introduce to the audience before we kick it off tonight?
No, no, I think we're good. I was taking a look at these bikes that we're about to learn about, and wow, art. They just like I want to just hang it on my wall. Thing's beautiful.
Yes,
I'm
I
looking forward
know.
to the show and all about this bike.
Yes, me too. So, if you guys, a little riddle, what is Tiffany's, geometry, mullet, and sick products all have in common? Well, it's our guest tonight,
Oh,
Miles Wide. Yes, Joey.
do have one thing. I want to thank all the trail builders. It's been raining in
Yes,
SoCal nonstop, and last weekend you guys have done an amazing job, like just unbelievable. So thank you.
definitely.
And we were just out at Greer, and it just it's awesome. But I've been seeing photos of San Clemente and Ted's, and it all looks great. So thank you.
Yes, thank you, trail builders. Amazing hard work going on out there, and the trails are just, oh my gosh, mwah.
Yeah.
Amazing, amazing.
We spent over an hour just on lower overdrive, which who would have thought, right?
Yes, lapping that place over and over and over again. Great shout out, Joey. Debbie says, shout out and thank you to the trail builders.
Woo.
Heck yeah. All right. Speaking of important people in the bike industry, here comes somebody who's been in here for a long time. His name is Miles Wide, and he also plays poker. I learned a lot of good things about this guy, and we're bringing him on the show right now. Here he comes. Hello, Miles.
Whoa, what up?
What's up, brother? Good to see you, man.
Yeah, good to see you guys. Everybody watching, what up?
Miles, you are broadcasting from Alabama?
Yeah, I'm in Huntsville. It's a pretty big up and coming mountain bike scene out here. I kind of want to be here at the beginning, the early stages, and yeah, there's a bunch of cool stuff going on out here. I know people are like, because I've lived kind of like all over the country where there's just hot spots of trails, and people are like, well, Alabama, why'd you move to Alabama? And it's pretty rad. There's a bunch of cool stuff. Just they're building so much stuff. There's Montesano, Ride BHM, Oak Mountain, Jared's Place isn't too far. So the trails aren't too crowded, but they're pretty rad. So, and that's what I
Sick.
like. You know?
Sick. And for those of you who are getting to know Miles on the show today, him living in Alabama, he basically goes wherever the stoke is. So he'll be in a spot for what, Miles, like a couple years, and then you move on to the next hot spot.
Yeah. Usually, like my limits, like has been 3 years. So like I lived in Asheville, North Carolina, from like 2013 to 2016. Then moved to Manitou Springs, Colorado, which is just outside Colorado Springs. Then moved to was there till like 2020, the pandemic. Then moved to Tucson, rode all the trails in Arizona, and then moved to Idaho and rode all the awesome trails in Idaho and Eastern Oregon out to Bend, and then then decided to move back east. When I move, it's got to be a complete opposite. Like it can't just be Idaho then Montana or Colorado then Utah, because most of the landscape's kind of similar, obviously, unless if you go to southern Utah, but there's not much to do in southern Utah. So so Alabama is complete opposite of Idaho, and Tucson is a complete opposite of Colorado, and Colorado is the complete opposite of Asheville. So it just kind of works, I get bored, and then I ride all the trails, and then I go someplace different.
I love it.
Yeah.
Marty Octodad out of New Zealand is asking, what terrain is in Alabama?
It's rocky. It's rocky, slow, steep, and tech.
Ooh.
So you get like old granite, slippery rocks, lots of big, chunky, slippery roots. Almost like imagine like riding down a rocky hiking trail. Then obviously you got the bike parks, and the dirt's a lot like red clay. So it's super easy to mold. So the jumps that they're creating out like at Ride BHM is like freaking primo.
Nice.
The work that they're doing out there is like, it's pretty phenomenal too. But yeah, I'd say it's wet because we get a lot of rain because we're not too far from the Gulf of Mexico. So but it's rocky and it's steep and it's tech. And where
Dang.
Idaho is just, at least where I was in Boise, southern Idaho, it's super smooth. Like they actually bring in rocks for rock gardens. Like they mail in their, well, I don't know, they don't mail them in, but like the rock gardens are man-made because there aren't any.
Yeah.
I got bored of the smooth, fast, ripping single track, as odd as that sounds. But you do something more than like a dozen times, ride the same trail like 2 dozen times. It's like, I need something different. So I need some leaves. So yeah, but
That's so
it's all good. All mountain biking's good,
yeah,
but I'm
yeah.
just able to do, get a taste of everything doing what I do, which is
And
beautiful. That's
and how long have you been doing this, Miles? You've been tasting different areas, different trail systems for a
shit.
while. When did this all start?
Yeah, 1997. I'm from New York, so like the urban area of New York. So and I was a bit of a skater, wearing the Jenko jeans, fucking riding like
Yes, I remember
birdhouse
those.
decks, and I
Yeah.
would go to the Brooklyn Banks. Like MTV Sports did a special on the Brooklyn Banks back in the day. Um, and I was kind of hanging out with the tough crowd, so to speak. So one of my good buddies was my skating buddy. His older brother was a bit of a geek, but that's aside the point. He was into mountain biking, which I didn't know what it was, but my friend's parents and my parents were talking because they didn't want me to hang around the city during the summer. So I was getting older, I was about to hit my teenage years, and I kind of want a BMX bike, because I want to get into BMX street. But this way I'd be able to ride to the spots quicker instead of skate, because
Yeah.
the roads back then were pretty gnarly, so we'd have to walk a lot, on the sidewalks of the street. You just could, unless there are rails around, but yeah, so they got me a mountain bike, and they were like, "Hey, you want to do this mountain?" And I was like, "What's a mountain bike?" And like those, we ended up like going to Florida, visit my grandparents, and this was like in the winter. And there was like a magazine that said mountain bike on it, and there was like a Trek Y frame. I don't know, I think it was like a Y33 or something. I'll never forget. It was like gray and purple. That's what I remember. And it looked like a motorcycle without a motor. And I was like, whoa, like I'd be able to
I can
ride
get anywhere
anywhere
in
with this thing.
that.
Yeah, obviously that bike was way out of the budget. But
Jinko
yeah,
pants
so
for
I
the
ended up
win.
getting, my parents got me for my birthday. I had to do like good grades, but I was like, I read the magazine on the airplane, like all the way through the pages. And I was like,
Wow.
whoa, this is a whole sport. Um, and so yeah, I was like, oh, I want to do this, and they were like, oh, do the grades and don't hang out with the bad kids. Don't go mountain biking. And so got me like a Gary Fisher Kai Tai, with, and had like I had a Manitou Spider fork on it. So that's like before. That's while it was still elastomers, before it got all air and lots of oil and stuff. It was just like basically two rubber plugs, and that's where your travel was. It was
That
like an
was your
80 mil
travel.
fork. Oh
Oh
no,
my
70,
god.
75 mil. And yeah, 24 speed, triple chain ring in the front. And they shipped me out to Colorado, this mountain
Wow.
bike camp called the Biking Expedition. And it was like 12 kids, all from like 13 to 15, from all over the country. And we just traveled Colorado for like 2 weeks, camped out, biked all the trails. And for me, it was like the only mountain bike I did was like in Central Park. So everybody on the trip, because I was like, I'm from fucking New York, like they're like, oh, this guy's gonna slow us down, there's a bunch of kids from like Colorado, California, and I was like, nah, I was like, yo, I'll be able to hang, don't worry. I remember we did our first trail, and I was like, I've spent my whole life at 0 feet altitude, so going up, I think we landed in Denver, went to Silverton, which is pretty high up. And like after, we got picked up at the airport, we drove to Silverton and it was dark, so I really couldn't see anything. But I'll never forget, like the next morning, we stayed at like some youth hostel place, and it was just like mountains, like that you'd only see in the magazines, This was like before internet. So, it's not like you can Google mountains, like I saw this in like my school book, and like, and in magazines, in the bike magazines that I got. So, I was like, holy crap, I'm here. And I was just so stoked, so ready to ride. So we did this ride. And I was huffing and puffing, but just like I was 13, so I had so much adrenaline. I was like, this is great. And then I got horrible altitude sickness.
Oh no.
And I was on cooking duty that night. So
no.
all the kids thought like I was like wimping out, not trying to do cooking duty. I didn't know what was wrong with me. I was just nauseous, Like the counselors didn't tell me I had altitude sickness. They were just like, oh, you probably just rode too hard. And I was like throwing up everywhere. Well, when I threw up, the kids were like, oh no, he's really sick.
Yeah. Hope he didn't get it in the food.
They're like, he's got a problem, And like, I just slept in my bunk bed in like the sleeping bag, just like shaking and throwing up. And I was like, what did I do? Why did I do this? And like, I remember just thinking about riding that day was making me throw up, just like shaking, just like, Jesus. Anyway, next day I feel better, and like the stoke came back, and I was like, where are we going today? I was like, let's go check out a bike shop and shit like that. So funny story on my bike. My fork, actually, the elastomers froze on the airplane, and they cracked, so I didn't have any fork travel. So I was basically riding a rigid, like on like. So I'm like, if I go on it today with my bike, I'd be like, this shit's fucking hard. Back then, you didn't know the best bike was, the one you rode, so to speak.
Yeah.
Some dude had some Spinnergy wheels. He had like a GT, but like everybody, I had like, they were all hardtails at that year, and they were all hardtails that year, and we all had like 80 mils of travel because that was like the most travel you can get back then. I remember when the Judy 100 came out, like in 2001 or something. That was like such a huge deal because it was like, whoa, look at all this travel, and it was just 100 mils, But yeah, anyway, I digress off of that.
No, so that got you stoked on the sport though. Like, was that like what brought you in?
Yeah, it got me so good. Like, I've never been camping before, I never been like really like the woods before. So like, this was just like, wow, like people live out here and they do this all the time. It was just like, wow, the magazines were true. It was just like, it was an overload. So when I came back home, I was like, I got to work at a bike because half the shit on my bike broke. So I was like, I'm gonna have to get some new stuff. So went to the bike shop, and because I was like under 16 and New York was really strict about like employment, like child labor and stuff. So I worked there. I was like, they're like, we can't hire you. I was like, I'll work here for free. I'll sweep your floors. I'll do whatever you want.
Wow.
Just teach me all this stuff about bikes, how to fix bikes. I don't care, I'll come in whenever my mom's able to drop me off, and they close like at 8, and I get out of school like at 3:30. And I was like, hadn't used the language that I knew now. I was just like, make me your whipping boy, and I was like, I'll do everything. And so that's what I did. I worked at that shop from when I was 13 till I was 26.
Whoa.
And while I worked there, God, at one point, I ended up being a counselor for those bike trips. So every summer, I continued going up. I broke my collarbone and both my wrists racing in a Norba series in Deer Valley, Utah, 2 years afterwards. Because like one trip, we were just like focused on following the Norba series out west. So I was racing as a junior. But yeah, I was on a Gary Fisher level Betty when that happened, and I had a dual crown Judy XL fork with V brakes. And again, 80 mils of travel for a dual crown fork, you know.
With some V brakes.
Yeah, like what the hell? Yeah, I bottomed out. And back then when you bottom out, you get launched into the stratosphere. So like I hit a water bar. Must have been doing about like 30 because it was at the end of the race, and a lot of the races back then, like at least at the end, were on fire roads. And I hit a water bar, and I remember I saw it coming, and like by the time I was like, oh God, it was too late, and I hit it, and boom, like catapulted. And I remember being upside down.
Gosh.
And like there was this book back then, like how to mountain bike 101. And one of the things they taught you, a high speed end over, is you're supposed to flip your hands up and like tuck your head. Basically tuck your head in between your legs and kiss your ass goodbye.
That's the same thing on
airplanes.
airplanes.
The ground coming, and I was like, "Oh my God, I'm going way too fast to be going over the bars." And then, bam! You know, I had like a Sean Palmer special edition helmet. I think they discontinued that helmet after the crash because like, specialized. But I was concussed, like. I was jacked up. So then I had to get sent home to New York, which sucked.
No.
Yeah, it was the end of the bike trip for me.
Oh man.
So, but yeah, while I was working there, you know, my parents were like, well, you know, you're not going to be able to make a living off being a bike racer. And they're like, even if you can, you know, there's like a timeline for that, you know. So after you're done, then what are you going to do? You know, and they looked at me because I crashed a bunch, and they were like, you're going to be a cripple. You're not even going to be able to work. That's how like the jewelry started because like I took a class at FIT really to try to get some girls. For those that don't know, FIT, the Fashion Institute of Technology in New York City, it's like 95% hot women.
Not a bad place
like,
to
I'll
be.
go here. And I took a jewelry course because I was like, yeah, there's definitely gonna be some hot chicks in that class. And I ended up just being like a natural. And the professor was like, you're really good. You know, like a lot of it was math and angles because this is before CAD, and like jewelry had to be like symmetrically perfect. And you do it in wax, and you'd have to make like all these different cuts in the wax before you'd start drilling and filing. And I would just like, because I didn't care, you know, I was just there for the broads. So I would just like start, I'd be like, fuck all the angles. And I would just start drilling fucking holes and making pendants. And I was really good, you know, which I didn't know, you know, with the professor on my stuff. And she was like, this is amazing. You know, she was like, I'm gonna speak to some people, and you probably be able to start like designing like for them right away. They'll get your contract. Whoa. Little did I know,
money already.
Yeah, she had some serious connections. And I remember she was like, I have some stuff lined up for you. I need you to come out with your own line, like create a full line. And so I named that line Milestones, which I thought was a genius name.
Nice.
Being the name Miles. And it was going to be most like what it turned out was good was rings, specifically wedding bands and engagement rings. So I ended up getting a contract for Tiffany's, and then selling my stuff in Bergdorf's. Yeah, so I was making like pretty good dough. And then so I was doing that, and this was like when I was like, I don't know, 18 till I was about like 23. And then in 2008, the market crashed, and a lot of my stuff was really expensive, like really expensive. I was doing mostly platinum and white gold, pink gold stuff. So
your bike setup must have been sick that year.
Yeah, it was a bad year for a lot of people. So much so that it ended up leading me into my next industry, because like I was hanging out with my buddies who worked in the finance district, and of course they got laid off. And we're just hanging out drinking before we were going to go out clubbing. And I was like, what are you guys doing all day? And they were like, oh, just jerking off. And like, I was like, what lube are you guys using? And they were like, fucking Astroglide. And I was like, that just sucks. And I was like, why don't you go to the adult store, get some real lube? And they were like, cuz it's like weird going in there. And like Dwayne Reed just got, Astro Chaos. That's just what we get. Why are you asking these questions?
Yeah.
And, we're all buzzed just being a bunch of dudes. And I remember I was like that whole night, I was just thinking, like, CVS, Dwayne Reed, Walgreens, like, these are big places. And everybody goes there, like normal people. And all they got is KY and Astroglide. I was like, that's whack. And I was like, both of that. I was like, Astro's in a purple bottle. It's embarrassing to have on your table. And KY looks like toothpaste. And like that lube feels like hair gel and it boogers up. Like stuff's gross. So I was like, Axe had come out around that time, and they're doing like basically repackaging shampoo into a black bottle. And I was like, that's what we need for lube. I was just like, except I'll make good lube, which I didn't know how. So I ended up, so I was still working at the bike shop, mind you, like 2 days a week.
Oh, the whole time. Okay.
The whole time, even when I was doing jewelry, because it was just me and the owner at that point. Like when my younger years, throughout my teenage years, like it was me and another guy, which is how, so this is probably around the same week of this lube idea, and I'm in the bike shop, and Bob, my boss, started carrying this stuff called butt chamois, and it was in this like white tube.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And at that time, his logo, because now you see butt chamois everywhere, chamois cream, it's in a purple bottle. And so his colors always stayed the same, but his logo has changed. At that time, it was like a butt imprint.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, Bob, what are you carrying? Like anal lube over here? And Scott, who was like recently divorced, he was our other mechanic besides me. And it was Bob, the owner. Scott was like, no, he's like, it's masturbation cream. And Bob's like, no, it's for chafing. It's for chafing. And like, I was like, what's chafing? It's like, well, when you get older, you'll find out. But it's for when you wear spandex shorts so your skin doesn't peel off. And I'm like, oh, that sounds horrible. Scott was like, yeah, but take a bottle home and beat one off with it. He's like, you're going to love it. And it's like $8 for a bottle. Of course, being at the bike shop, I got it for free. But I was like, I'll try this shit. Like, fuck, maybe come out with lube.
Right. So, product testing.
Yeah, 101 right there out of the shop. So I tried that stuff, and it was just like Lubriderm. I was like, whatever. But it was like better than KY or Astroglide for me, at least. Whatever. I was like, stuff's not so bad. I was like, I could see what Scott was saying. So like that week, I was like kind of talking with Scott and Bob. I was like, you can only get like Astroglide and KY at like, well, and they're, and Scott was like, I don't know. He's like, I've been using the butt chamois cream. Bob's like, what are you trying to say? And I was like, I don't know. What if I can like call up the owner of this company and be like, hey, can I buy your cream and put it like in a masturbation bottle? And they were all laughing. They thought it was great. And for me, like,
I'll do it.
Yeah, for me, humor was kind of like half of it,
Right.
I was like, this show would be funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, I go to like the AVN Awards, whatever. So I ended up calling him up, and I was like, if he sees this, he's gonna get so pissed sometimes. And sure enough, the owner, I don't know if I want to say his name, but picks up the phone. He's like, hello, Paceline Products. And I'm like, I'm looking for Steve. And he's like, this is him. And I'm like, work at a bike shop, and we have your chamois cream, and a couple of the guys that kind of use it for something else. And he's like, what do you mean? And I'm like, oh, we use it to jerk off with. And he starts laughing. He's like, a bunch of my guys in the warehouse use it for the same thing. And I'm like, my point exactly. I want to buy your cream and put it in a black bottle, and give it a cool name, and I'm going to get this into CVS. And he was like, okay, he was like, do you have a bottle? And I was like, well, no. He's like, do you have a name? And I was like, no. I was like, first I was seeing if I can get the lube, because otherwise I'm just, pounding sand.
Right. Nothing to put
And
it in.
so he's like, all right, we'll go get a bottle and I'll send it to my lab, see if we can fill it. And then it was like, from there, it was like, whoa, this can happen. And basically, like, I gave it the name Firsthand, which I thought was great.
Miles.
And like the name of the company was Mr. Bader LLC, which is also like really good name. And like, he helped me a bunch, used his lab to fill it, label it, put me in touch with his label person. And like 6 months from the idea, was like middle of October, because like the market crashed September. It was like middle of October. I did the A&E Expo. Well, I launched in April and started advertising like on Pornhub and Keys and X Hamster. Sorry, this is like X-rated stuff. I don't know if there are any kids watching, but if you are, you want to check out those sites. Not yet, at least.
The most people we've had on this show ever.
Yeah. Grow some hair in your chest first.
We're talking about seed money. This is how the seed money.
This is seed money. This is what kind of planted the seeds for literally. What impregnated the bigger business. But no, that business actually ended up being really good. That whole adult industry is very different from the bicycle industry. Yeah. I mean, I wasn't even expecting on going on this route, but like, you open up the can and I just ran. So you got to be careful.
Spokesman says seed. Kate says Richard Handler.
That's pretty funny. So like in June I did the A&E Expo, and like everybody in the adult industry, like they saw me as like this young kid. I was like 22 or like 23, and they were just like, they were like, look at this young kid, like he's. Because everybody in the adult industry is pretty old. Like, they're pretty, like, sketchy looking, Imagine, like, Ron Jeremy, but, like, everywhere, Like, all the adult shop owners were, like, exactly how you imagined it to be. Mind you, this is, like, 2009, 2010. So, obviously, the industry has changed. It's, like, it's pretty PC now. But it was pretty gross back then. But they were all supportive, and they were like, this is great. We love your packaging. We love your bottle, and your cream is great. And then, like, the CVS buyer came around. Everyone's got their tags. And I was like, oh, that's who I want to speak to, So I'm like,
right.
Come.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is the stuff that you need. Because I'm like, this is you're the reason why I'm here, I told him. I'm like, I got friends going into your stores that are having to buy junk. And I'm like, and this stuff is good, and it's marketed towards men, and like there's a lot of men that are jerking off with your lube that you sell, and it's no good. So, freaking like a month after the show, I got into CVS.
No way.
And that was just like, that was like holy smoke. So with it was just like almost a year from like conception. To
execution, 12 months.
Yeah, to get it, it basically took a year. And then I was getting to Adam and Eve, all the adult stores, was going to all the porn parties, had a bunch of fun, and ended up selling the formula to a medical supply company that puts it on catheters.
Jeez.
Yeah.
So your demographic, your market just even blew up even more.
Oh, well, I mean, once they bought it, I mean, it was actually a medical supply company in India, because I started getting into convenience stores. It's like a whole nother topic, I guess. But basically, they were like, we want this. Our catheters don't have lube, and your formula is perfect, and we want to buy it from you. It's not like I signed like a non-compete clause, because I wasn't going to make catheters. I mean, I was like 25, so I was like, all right.
That number, let's sign it. Yeah.
And I was still working at the bike shop. No, it's nothing like silicone. No.
Trail
Well,
pits, is it like
well,
slick
with
honey?
CVS, actually, I'm missing this. I'm skipping this part. So they wanted it in order to put in their stores. It had to be condom friendly. Which the cream, the
Spokesman says
chamois,
don't spread it on a bagel.
yeah, the chamois cream was oil based, so it's degrading condoms, and they were like, we got to make this
Oh,
stuff safe with condoms. So I called, Steve, and I was like, all right, it's time for the big leagues now. I have to speak to your lab because we got to make a whole new formula. And ended up being a hybrid formula. So it was water and silicone based, and it was paraben
okay.
free, glycerin free. It was like, and at that time, no one was making like paraben free lubricant. So, and it was pH balance for women. It was a pH at 5.8, where like the average pH level for women is like 5.7 to 5.9. So it was like
Right in there.
right in there. I know, TMI, but just whatever, let me rant it out. And yeah, so it ended up being really good lube.
He paused. Oh no. So
Are we being trolled?
no, I mean, I think what's cool about this story, obviously, for the kids out there that are listening, the business aspect of this podcast is neat in the sense of he thought of an idea, saw a need, and executed on it. 12 months later, he's building seed money, in which we're going to get into about the products that he brings to the bike industry.
That's the best right there. That's it.
Interview went soft.
Winner right there.
Oh, spokesman, dude, that's so funny. Nick is saying, "What happened?" Yeah, we're like, we're
Oh, geez.
oh, this is so fun. Oh, okay. He's gonna come back in. Let me send him another.
I don't know. The chat, I was like, I was like, what just
What
happened?
just happened? MTV to loop. Eric, we went from bikes to loop. SSB loop. You guys are killing it tonight. Oh my gosh, you guys, Riding Dirty's just
Oh, man.
crack it up. MTV
Yeah,
Nick, crack it up.
yeah, we were having
Oh man.
sidelines.
He's getting back on right now, guys.
Okay.
So MTB mini bomber Matthew. You're gonna have to hang in there, brother. This is seed money on how he gets to these awesome bikes we're talking about in these products. He was actually just talking with, I believe he was saying backstage, Seth, I'm assuming he was talking about Seth Bike Hacks.
Oh, yeah,
Seth,
possibly.
for a multi-tool use. So we're gonna have to see
Now we know what's
what
up.
that looks like. Burrell Bike says, I actually wrote Miles' script for Mark.
I told you we'd be in trolled.
Thanks, Christian. Here he is. He's back. All right. Yo, Miles.
Dude, I thought I got yeah, I thought I got kicked off there. I thought I was pissing off somebody.
No, you're doing good, but we're in the seed money part, so we're raising the money now to get towards
yeah, to get towards the bigger stuff. Well, so I'm working at the bike shop still. Like, even when I got this into like CVS, because Scott would you want to hear about all the crazy stories that were happening and stuff? I just like I still mountain bike this entire time. This is like my mom told me, stick with what you're good at. And for me, it was riding things. And so, whether it's bikes or other things, that's, lube was great. So we got a guy that came into the shop who's a bit of a regular. He had like a ridiculous, I think it was like a Madone S Works, and he worked at Blackstone, which is like a big investment company in Manhattan. And they had like a bicycle race team. I guess just side note. Yeah, so he would come into the shop and I would work on his bike. Excuse me, I'm hiccuping. And he had heard, well, I guess like Bob, my boss at the shop, told him that I did the lube and all this funny stuff. And he was like, I got a genius product for you to make. And I was like, sure, I can make stuff, I did it once, like, what you got? And so, we signed a non-disclosure, and we we went out, you know, to like this burger joint and signed the stuff. And he drew out on a napkin this pack. And he was like, this is what we need to make. And it was like basically a rectangle looking pack.
Okay.
And he was like, right now, like he was like, do you road bike? And I was like, I don't road bike. I was like, that stuff's too dangerous. You know, I was like, you can't see the cars coming. And so, I mean, at least in New York, like in New
And
York, it's dangerous to ride a bike on the road. So I mean, I worked on people's bikes that like were dropped off by their widows, you know, and just like, I
oh,
don't know what to do with this. And like,
oh,
yeah, so it was just something like I had no interest. But anyway, he road ride, and like I said, he had a team. He was like, all we use and all there's available are for our jersey pockets are Ziploc bags. He's like, we put our tubes, tire lever, patch kit, whatever we want to carry, our phone in a Ziploc bag, and then we stuff it in our jersey pocket. And I was like, what about a seat bag? And he looked at me and was like, we ain't using Fred bags. And I was like, what's a Fred bag? And he was like, a Fred bag is a saddle bag. And I was like, why you call it Fred? That's a whole nother conversation. But basically he was like, you have to understand that this would be a big market for and I honestly, I wasn't into it. I was like,
you
this is
couldn't.
kind of like lame, you
Yeah.
know. But what interests me was him. Like he was really smart and he worked at Blackstone, and I was like, that was interesting to me. And
Pretty
he was like,
successful. Yeah.
yeah, he was successful, you know, and like success kind of wants to be around success sometimes, you know.
Yeah.
It was just like someone that, you know, almost like another mentor, because he was older than me. He was like in his mid 40s at the time, and I was still like in my mid 20s. So and he was like, well, do you, you know, having the conversation, blah, blah. And I was like, yeah, you know, are you sure? And he was like, yeah. He's like, trust me, we make these, we'll sell a lot of them. And he was like, well, he was like, I want you to come over to my apartment and we're going to sew up a couple. He used to do, he like lived in Hong Kong for a bit and worked at this clothing company.
Oh,
So
whoa.
he had a bunch of like, so I go into, it was ridiculous apartment, you know. I mean, of course, the guy's Blackstone, but it was
Yeah.
still to this day, it was like one of the sickest apartments I've ever been in. It was like 3 levels, massive flat on the first level with pool table, bar, and this
Dang.
huge like pallets that were like beamed up with just fabric, rolls of fabric, like as
Whoa.
if it was like the garment district of New York City. And he had this old school, huge industrial sewing machine. And I was like, whoa, this guy's not kidding, you know, he wants to sew. So, yeah, so he taught me how to sew. And, you know, like I still got, oh man, I still have my first, we ended up calling it the sticky pod.
Okay.
And so, and it was basically like what he wanted. It was a neoprene bag, so it was soft, had a bunch of little pockets to hold your necessities, and it slipped in any jersey pocket. That was kind of like, that was it. And
Wow.
he's like, you know, you made friends with Paceline, who sells the chamois. He's you know, they distribute other products. And I was like, yeah. He was like, so this is going to be, you know, sell it to him,
Yeah.
basically. They
Use
could
them as
sell
a
it.
distributor, right?
Right. So, yeah. So, I mean, you know, ended up making a bunch, getting them out to him. I mean, it's not, you know, we had a simple, you know, 1 or 2 page website, you know, hooked up to PayPal. And it wasn't like, you know, especially after what I did with Firsthand, like the Firsthand, I get so much orders. I had a warehouse distributor, so I would just email them the orders, so I didn't have to ship the stuff. Because, you know, advertising on the sites, and just I was in like 1,000 adult stores and like, you know, pharmacies, so it was too much to handle. So with the sticky pods, it was kind of like I was, you know, maybe shipping like 4 or 7 a month. You know, we
Oh,
sold them through the bike shop. And Steve took them on. He bought like 100. It took him like 2 months or 3 months to siphon through. I was like, this stuff's Mickey Mouse. I was like, did it more for the experience. I had kind of like enough of New York because like they were doing so much construction around LaGuardia Airport. So like getting to any trails, mountain bike trails, like I'll go out to Long Island or I'll go out to Cunningham and Queens, which is a good bike spot, or I go up to Sprain Ridge. And it was just such a pain. I was so sick of traffic that like, it'd take me like 2 hours to get to the trailhead. And like, it's not even like the trails are that like, wow, compared to the stuff. Because like I rode like Porcupine Rim when I was like 15 years old, like on a Trek VRX 400. I mean, like, so like I've and like I was at the point in my life, I was like, man, I could live anywhere. Like, why am I in New York? So that's, Bob, that shop that I worked at, he was getting ready to retire. He offered the shop to me, and I was like, no, I can't. I was like,
you wanted to get out of there.
Yeah, I was like, I want to get out. So that's when I moved to Asheville, North Carolina. And while I was living there, Tyler Benedict, who owns Bike Rumor, somehow got a hold of a sticky pod, did a review. And like I would check the website because like I ended up making like 3,000. So like I had this inventory of pods that like I was sitting on at that point, probably for like, I don't know, it's probably like a year already. And
motivation kind of dwindling on that.
Yeah, like I wasn't trying, like I made it. Okay, you thought it was going to be some big deal, and it was just whatever. It was more for the experience, and I picked his brain a bunch, just like about finance and stuff. So that was good. So Tyler Benedict somehow got I checked the website every so often. Maybe I'd have to ship like one sticky pod to like, New Jersey or something, like once a week. And Tyler did a review on Bike Rumor, and that review went up like in 2013, 2014 maybe. And well, I mean, I just checked my PayPal, and like there was like a couple grand in there, and after just having like, I don't know, like $70, like
you're like, what the heck?
Yeah, I was like, I literally said, what the fuck? And my ex at the time came running out. She was like, is everything okay? I was like, someone hacked my website, the Sticky Pod site. Like, I don't know. I think they're embezzling money through there. Because I was like, how'd this happen? Like, so I Googled Sticky Pod, and like that Bike Rumor review was there, and he gave it like a great review. And I started getting emails from distributors in like Japan and the UK, Australia. And they're like, we love the Sticky Pod. We want to carry it. What else do you make?
Oh, man.
And I was like, oh, what else do I make? Just wait and see. That's kind of like, that was the start of the Miles Wide line. I mean, before it was Miles Wide, like I just like naming things and naming products. So like the next product I came out with, I was like, I had the lizard skin brake lever grips back in the day, but like they sucked because they were neoprene. So the moment you get them wet, they would just be super slippery. But but we did also in my shop, we sold hybrids. We sold like Specialized Cirrus and like the Trek 7500 FX, which are like high-end hybrid bikes, and they had grips built into the brake lever. And like after building up those bikes, and like I gripped, I'm like, man, these levers feel freaking good. So I was like, I'm gonna make grips for brake levers, like actual grips. And so I named them Sticky Fingers. And so I had like my Sticky Pod website. Then I had a Sticky Finger website, like stickyfingers.com. I didn't think to like encapsulate them all into under one umbrella. I just like was just giving each product like their own unique kind of like story or name.
Yeah, like they're their own entity. There you go, right there. Sticky Fingers, always got it up.
Yeah, so those are like, and that's the Sticky Pod to the left, So like I just drew out that frog with just a marker and stuff, you know, and then had it illustrated. But yeah, those are version 2s of the sticky fingers. Version 1s, I still have people asking me for them. I mean, we're going back to like 2014 when I came out with those. And yeah, those went like really good. You know, all the distributors were all into that, selling it. I never really went out to try to get reviews for them. It was just like, here they are. I figured they would get picked up the same way the Sticky Pod got picked up, and then get a review and like, boom, so
Yeah.
to speak. Which
Yeah.
ended up happening with Seth and Burn Peak, but like way years later,
Wow.
he got a pair. You know, and it was just like, whoa.
It went again. Was it the
Yeah,
Sticky Pod that?
lottery. But yeah, so after the sticky fingers, and this was like, I came out with all these products like in like from like 2014 to like 2015, at least like most of them.
Wow.
I had a Fox Talus 180, and this is like 2000. It was like from that fork was from 2013. And it had such bad stiction, like until like I was riding for about a mile, then it would start like feeling like butter. I mean, I would spit on the stanchions and like to just try to like grease them up so it just didn't feel like crap.
Start so rigid. Yeah.
Yeah, so I you know, because it was a buttery fork, but it took a while to get buttered. So I was living in Asheville. I was like, I still had leftover. So I was like, let me put some of my first tan on the stanch and see what that's like. And it worked great. So I went, I want to make sure that it was going to be safe and not like degrade my forks. And at that time, you had this company called the Suspension Experts. They were in Asheville. Fox ended up buying them out because that was Fox. Now that's Fox, like East Coast service area. But it used to be the Suspension Experts, and they were like the suspension gurus, basically. And the owner, who I became kind of friendly with, I was like, you know, check out this stuff. I was like, what do you think? You know, he's like, give me a box so I can give some to the boys, you know, in case they want to use it for other stuff. So I came back the following week, and they were like, all right, well, it works, but it leaves a residue, which you really don't want because it's just going to suck more dirt and grease into the lower. So they're like, if you can create a formula that does what it's supposed to do, just lubricate the seals and not leave a residue, they're like, then you got something. So, you know, I just went into like a bunch of research on all different types of viscosities and weights and CSTs. Dang. And got a formula and brought it back to the Suspension Experts and was like, all right, try this stuff out. And mind you, this stuff isn't safe for sex or jerking off or anything. You know, this is last conversation. This is like
new formula. Yeah.
Yeah. New formula specific for suspension. And they were like, this stuff's fantastic. They were like, we're not going to sell it because one of our biggest repairs are like replacing fork seals. So they're like, but you should do good with this. So that was Wet Seal, which is that stuff right there.
Joey, that was fast.
Yeah, he's quick on the draw.
Yeah,
and there's my old Talus fork right there. Yeah.
Wow.
And then I became pretty tight with this shop in Asheville, which is no longer there, called Billy Goat Bikes. And I just went into the shop and I was like, what do you want me to make? You know, I literally asked him, I was like, what should I make? And he was like, well, dude, there's this mud guard called the Marsh Guard. And he's like, we want to carry them, but we're having to order them from the UK and they're so damn expensive. And they're like, we're having to sell these for like $30 for a piece of plastic, but people are buying them.
Just to cover the shipping, probably.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, the shipping was so expensive. And so he was like, see if you can make this. And so it being the Marsh Guard, which to me, like mud guard, like people really weren't throwing out the word mud guard yet. It was just like Marsh Guard or bike fender. So I named it the duck flap because it looked like a duck, like a bill.
Bill. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. There it
So
is.
I gave it some little eyes, kind of like the no fear eyes, like no fear back in the day was like this clothing
Sick.
line. They had like pissed
Yeah.
off eyes.
Yeah.
Um,
That looks good.
so yeah, that was like 2015 like just at the end of 2014, 2015, I was making those. So it was like and then I was selling them to like bike parks and everybody. So I was like, all right, it's time to do Interbike, with all these products and put myself really out there because I'm like, this
Yeah.
stuff's good, but it's just not getting like the recognition that I feel it, like this stuff's good. Like these people should have this in shops. So I did the Interbike.
Ooh, the big show.
Yeah, the big show. And that was kind of like, I don't know, like it was my first time going there as like a vendor and it was different. Finish Line came by my booth and jacked a bottle of Wet Seal and
Oh.
yeah.
Oh my
I was like,
jeez.
yeah, like my neighbor buddy was like, yo, Finish Line just came by and took a bottle. I think it was like the Sea Sucker guys. They was like their premiere, their like revealing of their bike rack, which like sucks on windows. And they were like, yeah, Finish Line just came by and just took a bottle of that.
Oh.
And I was like, oh no. I was like, just let him get away. They were like, yeah, what do you want us to do? Like I think I like was grabbing food or was taking a piss. So yeah, they ended up then like Stiction Lube all of a sudden became a thing. But like I was selling this stuff for like I did Interbike, yeah, like September of 2015. So I was doing like the Wet Seal for like it's about like a full year, and yeah, so anyway, I digress. You shouldn't spray stuff anywhere near your fork because if it gets on your rotors, it's gonna be a problem.
Yeah. It's gonna sound like a musical instrument.
Yeah, and you're just not gonna be able to brake. And so that's why I like my bottles. I mean, now I use kind of like an e-juice bottle, but that bottle on the website had like a little glass pipette, so you can just go whoop around the seals. Then I ended up coming out the bottle pod, which was like a bottle, which was like the sticky pod, except you could stick it in your water bottle cage, more for mountain bikers, or if you had 2 water bottle cages and you didn't know what to do with the other one, so you could use it as storage. Then I came out with a product which I took off, which I might put back on, called Pano Wraps.
Okay.
Which were goggles that roll up and go into your pocket. This way, like before you descend, so if you want to climb up, this way your goggles don't get foggy. Yeah, that's the bottle pod there.
Oh wow, look at that. It's got all the tools in it.
Yeah, I mean, I just stuff it with whatever, but you can put anything you want in there. I'm out of stock on them, but yeah, Christmas was good.
Wow.
So yeah, some old school pictures right there. So yeah, Pano Wraps aren't on the side, but they're basically goggles that roll up. So when you're about to go down, you can put them on. And because I wear contacts, and like no matter what sunglasses, like my contacts would pop out. I guess it's because I ride so fast. What can I say?
Yeah.
But I didn't want to wear goggles or bring them because they're bulky, and then they would fog up on the climb. So this was like a roll-up goggle kind of thing. I got like some hate for it. So like I was just like, screw it. Like I don't need to sell it. Like a lot of this stuff I just do for fun, and it's because I want it. But like, if I'm gonna get hate, like yeah, I could do anything. I don't need to get the hate. So after that, again, I went to Billy Go Bikes, my old buddy Matt Haynes, and I was like, hey, what should I make next? And he was like, dude, we're ordering basically frame tape that they use for motocross bikes. And they were like, you should make this. He's like, because no one makes frame protection. And like, I was like, no way. And he was like, yeah. He's like, well, a lot of guys are using it, are just buying helicopter tape. And I was like, really? And I was like, yeah, that's like genius. So I contacted like, which I didn't know. I was just like going to like the bowels of Google for like for uh film frame protection film. I was looking for stuff that they put on cars, just all sorts of stuff. I ended up getting the people that print decal, so you can print artwork on this stuff, which I just never did because I'm not into the kid stuff, printing patterns on the stuff to try to make my bike look different. But I mean, I made checkered stuff anyway. So they make the decals for football helmets. So all the NFL helmets you see, it's actually a decal with artwork. At the end of the game, they peel it off. A lot of people think there might be painted on, but they're not. It's this company that does it. So it's made in the USA. It's not 3M, which is great. So you can this stuff you can remove. It'll never leave an adhesive residue. It doesn't yellow. It's pressure sensitive, so it's really easy to get the air bubbles out. So I started doing that, and as time went on, like I started getting into distributors like BTI, J&B, Olympic Supply Co., KHS, and then a bunch of international distributors. And then I came out with the Fork Cork, which is a plug for the bottom of your steer tube. And at that time, like I would carry dubes with me and they'd always get crushed. So like put
them up there.
Yeah, it was great because they didn't get crushed. And when I drive cross country, I wouldn't have to worry about someone looking up my head tube if I get pulled over.
Dude, I love this, Miles. You put dubes in there, but then on the marketing it says it's perfect for
it's
space blanket,
and the Fork Cork,
tool.
Genius name. I'm actually right now I'm working on a couple of attachments for it. I don't want to give too much stuff away, but they're pretty rad. So yeah, I mean, if anything, it just keeps your steer tube dry, unless you use a Deity top cap, which have like holes in it, because then if it rains or whatever, water just seeps through, gets into your headset, or if you got something inside your steer tube, it will get wet. I learned that the hard way, so I don't run Deity top caps anymore.
You're like, no.
Yeah, I was like, no. Horrible. Yeah, it's funny. You get to the top of the climb, you just didn't seal. You're like, look what I got, boys. Some party favors.
But it's all wet. You're like, dang that.
Yeah, I was like, oh no. They're like, dude, go back to the drawing board with that one. And I was like, no, it's the top cap. I came up with like a bunch of stuff along the way. Some stuff like I haven't come out with. Like I've got a cleaner, which is just like, just haven't had time to like create a label and other stuff. Like I've been back dabbling into some other industries as well. But that's kind of like more or less the story of like the Miles Wide products, like how I got into it, why I got into it, how it started, and how it expanded. Then like the cable buddies, like my cables would just bang around, and I'd always use zip ties. I mean, sometimes I'd use the S hooks, but they never stay on. So like I was like, there's got to be a better way. So we designed, me and this guy from my German distributor, Mountain Products. He basically came up with this design to hold the cables but prevent them from touching, which was the big thing. So they wouldn't touch and they wouldn't click, because it would just drive me nuts. And like, this is probably one of my favorite products. It's just like, to me, it's a no-brainer. Like, you shouldn't be running zip ties with these. And then you can stack them and kind of like do different colors, so it looks like Skittles. Yeah, they're pretty rad. I've got like more colors coming, but they just snap right on, and then boom, it's done. And your cables won't move, and also like helps route the cables in like a good direction that you'll want to go in.
Yeah, makes the cables look clean, Miles. I got a couple questions that came in while you were talking about that, I mean, so many products. One of the questions that I have is to go from idea to actual physical product.
Yeah.
How in the world did you, I mean, was it
Yeah.
connections? What was that? How did you do it?
Yeah. I will say, going back to the first hand, the personal lubricant, um, uh, yeah, so going back to the personal lubricant, it was like, that was kind of like Steve, the owner of Paceline. He was a bit of a mentor. Um, he helped me understand the process. Like, okay,
Mm,
bottle, name, bottle meaning packaging,
okay.
name, branding, and then you need a website. And then you're going to need an LLC so you can file taxes and so you can protect yourself in case someone uses this and their dick falls off,
Right. Right. You got some
Um,
protection there.
yeah, like this way they'll just take the money from the company. They're not going to go after your personal assets. You're going to need a barcode, so if stores carry it or distributors so they can scan it. He helped me with a lot of that stuff. As far as like when I come out with some, and then the other guy with the sticky pot teaching me how to sew, teaching me about overseas markets and manufacturing, how to get into them. Like I get a lot of emails, and I respond to everybody. I want to make this thing. What do you think? Most of the time, I play devil's advocate. And it's for their best interests because what I did, it's not easy. I mean, after you do your first one, it becomes easy. I'm
You kind of got,
easier.
you got the formula somewhat kind of there, right?
Right, right. The first one's always going to be a learning experience. You come across problems that you may not have thought of. I mean, like there was little for me, like the website. I remember for the first hand, it was such a pain in the butt, like finding the right website person. I got screwed so hard, like 2 times.
Oof.
Um, so yeah, there's always, I mean, with anything new that you're gonna do, there's gonna be a learning curve. But as far as like coming out with something, anybody can do it. It's really easy. One thing, a lot of people say, oh, Alibaba. I mean, Alibaba steals ideas. So you got to be really careful with them because you can contact that manufacturer, say, oh, I got an idea for something. And they'll say like, all right, show me. And then you show them and then they'll just steal it and you'll
Give
never
it to,
hear from them again.
wow.
Or sometimes you'll pay for a mold or or a production or small, MOQ, minimum order quantity production, and then you just never get it.
Oh,
So
jeez.
I like to, I never used Alibaba, to make my stuff, but I have communicated with them. I know how it works. If I were to recommend someone on how to do it, that would be your first learning experience is Alibaba because it's there, and like not everybody on that site are criminals. So I would reach out to like 10 of them. Tell them your idea. Don't tell them your idea. Say, hey, I got a product I'm pretty sure I think you guys can make. What's like a minimum order quantity? Like let's say you want to come out with a glove, right? So you Google Alibaba MTB gloves. You get a fucking list of people that manufacturers that actually make the gloves, and you'll say, hey, I got a glove I want to make, my own design, my own label. What's the minimum order quantity? That's what you're going to want to ask. And then you kind of want to have like a back and forth conversation. And that's, with emailing. Sometimes they'll have Skype or WhatsApp. That's even better because you'll just be able to communicate faster.
Yeah.
But, and you just want to go back and forth with them a couple times. I wouldn't say not like dangling them on the hook, but seeing what their communication's like, and then like obviously doing some research on their company, say, hey, what's your website, stuff like that. You build a rapport, you build trust, not just like, hey, I'm going to make 1,000 gloves and then I'm going to be out of there and be gone. You're never going to hear from me again because that's what the manufacturers, if they are a real manufacturer, not going to be there to fuck you. That's their worst nightmare is to
Right.
put all the work in they make 1,000 gloves, which to them is nothing. You know,
It's
a
like
lot of the time
their
it'll be like
sample.
10,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just
Yeah.
like a sample run. And then you go away, which is what most people that reach out to them, that's what happens.
Mm.
Because they're just not like an established brand or whatever. So kind of having a website and just showing that you are legit, you're a real person, and you're going to take this seriously in your business, just building that trust back and forth. You got to trust them. They kind of have to trust you. And then anything's possible. I mean,
Wow.
you know, it's not just China on Alibaba. You do have other countries. You got in, you know, Vietnam, you'll be able to find, you know, democratic countries, so to speak.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. But yeah, you know, China's all right to work with. You know, it all depends on what you're making. If it's an inexpensive product that's going to have a low retail price, your best bet is to go overseas, because if you try to make it here, it's just going to be too expensive.
Too expensive
You
for the consumer. Yeah,
know?
right.
Yeah, you know, it's like, you know, like gonna sell a cheap pair of sunglasses and they're cheap, but they might have a cool design. But like, you can't sell those sunglasses for $80 because they're cheap, or because you're a new brand and no one wants to invest $80 because no, they haven't heard of it. So you
Right.
want to sell those sunglasses for $20. If you do, you're not going to be able to make them here because they're going to cost you 30 to make. Where
Right.
over there, they might cost you like $5.
Got
Um,
it. For the
so
minimum
that's
order
kind of
of
like
what.
a long answer to that
No,
question, but
that's
I hope it helped. You
it
know,
helps a lot, man. I love it because that's what I saw when the manufacturer came to you and said, "We love the sticky pod. What else do you got?"
it
And it just
started with one. It
right.
started with one, you know, and that's just how it goes. Like, the hardest part of making something your own, you know, making your coming out with a product is like waking up the next day and saying, "All right, I'm going to do this." You know, because if you don't, then it turns to a week, then it turns to a month, and then it comes into like, "Oh yeah, I had this idea for a product and someone else ended up making it."
Yes, it becomes a
You know,
what if. Yeah.
yeah, if you literally have to get like almost angry, like pissed off, that like, well, fuck, if I don't make this, someone else is gonna make it, and I'm gonna be pissed off for
Yeah.
like a long time. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna make it, you know, and you just get this like this fire that just lights up inside you, and you're like, all right, this is what I'm gonna do, because this is what I want to do, and I can see it happening. I can see getting successful off of it, and just like chasing that vision, which some people will call a dream. You know, like for me, like dreams aren't reality. They're like visions. You know, I I feel like they can be real, so to
Yeah. You
speak.
could
You
almost
know,
touch
it's like
those, right?
I see this happening. You know, I
Yes.
don't see myself flying magically in the air, you know, but I see myself getting successful off this idea, this little product that I have, you know.
I love
Um, you know, and then like there's trademarks versus patents and all that stuff, which again, that's like a whole nother can of wax, which is something I've learned, but you know, it's not like I learned it overnight. Like I learned it as I went on, you know, as I developed the businesses that I have and stuff like that.
man,
So
and
yeah,
that's gonna be a great segue into part two, everybody, because part two of this, we're gonna have Miles back on, and we're gonna get into the other business of mullet bikes, the term mullet,
yes,
the whole thing. And here's a good transitional question coming out of New Zealand. They ask Miles what he thinks about the Z-Rod bikes from New Zealand. He's
yeah,
wondering.
zeroed.
Zero.
Yeah, the owner of that company is actually, he's a pretty clever guy. From what I understand, it's just one dude, or at least like that's what it was like 2 years ago, which to me is impressive. Whenever when it's like one dude who does it all, to me that's like, you know, because it's tough, because I've been there, done that. Um, there, you know, he's got some interesting things going on. He likes to do the I believe like the internal gearbox, which some people are a big fan of because it doesn't rip their derailleur off. Um, I know how to ride a bike and pick my line, so my derailleur doesn't get ripped off. No, but Yeah, I mean, there's like this other company that I forgot what it is, like Trinity or something, and like he's got a gearbox on the bottom. Like for me, like you gotta understand, I've been mountain biking for fucking decades. Like I rode with Tinker Juarez when he was in the World Cup. I mean, not rode with him, like I saw him and then he was gone.
Yeah.
And like Cadell Evans, he was on the Cannondale team with Tinker. Then he ended up going Tour de France and won the Tour de France. But like Ned Overland, like I've been doing this. Like there's pictures of me on my site with like Missy Giove when she was in her prime, like racing in the World Cup downhill. So like I've seen everything. I've seen all the snake oil. Like there's pros and cons to everything. There's no perfect bike. You're gonna have pros and cons. It's just like what's the most pros, least cons. Anyway, I look at like the gearbox stuff. Like I can break it. I break shit. I've always have broke shit, which has been kind of my problem. And there's nothing worse than breaking something when you're 20 miles out from a trailhead.
Yes.
And I mean, I'm a bike mechanic, but like I don't know how to fix a gearbox. I mean, I guess that is somewhat new technology, because it's not like we had these like we had like internal gears like in the hub, like, but they're so heavy, like no one want to run them. So yeah, like I look at that stuff and I'm just like, well, if I'm 20 miles out from the trailhead and something breaks, like, how am I going to get home? At least if my derailleur does break, I'll take it off and I'll put it around. So I just got one gear. At least I'll be able to pedal. And then just having like, just all my gears by my bottom bracket where I'm likely to have rocks smash stuff, and just like if I case a rock drop or something like this, it's just gonna smash. Now, obviously, there are pros to it. You don't have a derailleur, but like derailleurs, they work, and like if you design, which I believe I have, a solid derailleur hanger, like, you're not going to worry about your derailleur bending off. Like if you do smash something hard enough, yeah, your derailleur is just going to shear off. But again, at least you have one gear.
True. Right.
Yeah. So, but yeah, getting back to zero, I mean, it's impressive. The guys out of, I don't know if it's Australia or New Zealand. Yeah, New Zealand, or I think Australia, or was Australia. But I mean, yeah, dude, it's impressive. It's not a bike for me. I mean, nobody was kind of making a bike for me, which is why I had to make it myself. Like I can't do carbon because I break that shit, like it's like there's no carbon on trophy trucks, because like they're getting, I mean, for like your average rider, yeah, it's probably all right. Or for your pro rider, it's great because he'll get a new bike all the time. And don't get me wrong, some people have had a carbon bike for a long time, never had a problem, never broke it. Most of the times when those bikes do break, it's during a crash. So because the bike's just going whap 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 whap,
Yeah.
and then something snaps, and you walk to your bike, and you're like, oh no,
My bike's not okay.
yeah, my bike's not okay. So yeah, and just with like scratches and stuff, like so and I know he does a lot of carbon, so I'm sure. Look, I mean, there's so many different bikes because there's so many different people and people with great ideas. So, and people are so passionate about bikes because it's just such an endorphin release every single time you're done. And it just makes you so happy.
So
and people
good.
are like, I want to do this for a living. I'm going to figure out how to do it. And they do it. And it's like, it's impressive. So look, that bike might be great for some people, but that's just my 2 cents. It's just not a bike for me.
No,
But he's still a very impressive and smart guy. I forgot his name, but yeah, it's like to do that and think you're going to be able to compete with like the big box brands. It's like you do it because you're passionate, not because you think you're going to get rich off of it, because it's just, there's just such a small percentage of folks that actually do. I mean, and the biggest thing is marketing. You got to have a marketing brush. You got to tell people this is the best. You know, you got to advertise on
Yeah.
Pink Bike and Vital, and it's got to be in their face all the time.
Yeah, they gotta know it's available.
Yeah,
Definitely.
you know, and you need money, and that's like a whole nother side of passion. You know, like you gotta want to hire a bunch of people, you know, and like that's a whole job in itself. So, you know, with Zeroed, it's like he's carving his own line, you know, and respect. Hats off to him. You know, and yeah, it's always cool to see a different bike. So yeah, you
I
know.
think I think this will be a good spot in the show. We gotta put this one to a close, Miles, but we definitely want to have you back to talk about the next chapter in
Yes, the bikes. Yeah,
yes.
why I made them, what makes them so awesome.
Oh
How come I
yeah.
don't release the geometry? What's the
The
deal with the elevated chain stays? You know, like, oh, dude, I'll get into it all. Because I know, you know, people have been listening. If they've been listening long the whole time, thumbs up. You know, I hope I was entertaining.
Oh, absolutely, man. The seed money
Um,
part was the best by far. That's the most people we've ever had on the show. That was awesome. Joey, if you can, just to close out for everybody, could we pull up one of the Mullet bikes from Miles's website and show the folks? And Miles, maybe you could take us through just that tidbit, because one of the
just the tip.
things, yeah, just the tip, but that how the Tiffany's aspect kind of plays in, because that's just the tip of the iceberg on the bike, and I think
Oh
that
yeah,
that's cool.
yeah. So yeah, the head badges. So I mean, God, like I was like going back to like I've been in the industry, mountain biking, everything, like before the internet was here, you know. So like never did I think I'd have my own bike company. It was just like fuck no. And like, why would you want it? You know, like Specialized and Trek, they make the best stuff. Like, how do you think you're gonna be able to make a better bike than them? Like, come on, you know. So when I finally got like the formula for, in my opinion, what was gonna be something better, I was like, I gotta go all the way. Every millimeter of this thing not only has to be sex, because I know Americans buy with their eyes, or not American men buy with their eyes. You know, if
Yeah.
it's sexy, they're like, oh, I want it, even though I might suck in bed. You know, the average. You know, I don't want to just in case girls are listening, get myself in trouble. But yeah, and then it was obviously like it was gonna have to ride like better. It was actually gonna have to be better because I've ridden everything, like, and that we'll get to that and why I did it. But yeah, the head badges. So that was just, it was a piece of it. I wouldn't say that's the whole enchilada, but that was like just a step up the game from what anybody else can do.
So
Was the
that
head
right,
badge, and
yeah,
so
so we're
Tiffany's cast my head badges.
so sick.
So it's like, you know, they'll cast like the Super Bowl rings and like the Stanley Cup and stuff, and they make my head badges. So it's like,
That's
can't,
dope.
you know, no one can mess with that. Like these head badges are, look, for me, it's cost, right? I'm just paying for metal, and they're bronze, which is tin mixed with brass, basically. So it's not like a very expensive metal. That one's gold, but yeah, that's not the OE badge. I think I got some of the badges on the Instagram, which I really don't, you know, like I'm not interested in the marketing and like having to entertain people with pictures. It's like, it's not why I did it. I did it so I can have my own bike and just have it be the coolest and best bike that will never break, basically. Yeah, but the head badges, they're killer. They're casted in New York City. Like, it's jewelry, you know.
That's so awesome.
I
Yeah.
know, yeah. And there's another design too, which is like, we call it like the rooster, which is blood, sweat, and tears. I don't know if I got you know, websites. You know, I tried my best with it. You know, it's like there's always stuff we can add. I've got to add my wheel sets to the site. Yeah, I've made my own wheel set as well, which
Dang,
is
Miles.
why I designed the tubeless Schrader valves, because I think Presta valves are great for road bikes. But
Oh, we lost him. We lost him. That was a great segue though into the bikes. And folks, that will be when we bring Miles back onto the show. We'll talk about the Mullet Bikes, Mullet Cycles. Here he is. He's come back.
There you go.
bandwidth is being exceeded, I guess.
It's okay. It's okay. We're just wrapping it up, Miles. But I was just saying this was a great segue into the Miles, into the Mullet Cycle.
Mullet Cycles. Mulletbike.com, mulletbicycle.com. You know, I'll be able to reveal a bunch more on our next conversation. Some stuff that you probably don't see on the site. People watching now, if they want to ask questions, write down your questions. And next time I come on, I'll answer as many questions as I can. Yeah, and we'll rock and roll, man.
Yes, definitely. So
happy trails.
This has been so good. Bandwidth is bad in Alabama, Burrell Bike says.
Well, the thing is, I'm in Huntsville. They call it Rocket City. So you got like Raytheon, NASA is here. There's Blue Origin. You got a lot of like basic missile defense and security stuff here. Like I can't fly my drone like in the neighborhood because they'll shut it down and fly it to their base and destroy. The lube, of course I got a bottle right here. The lube is called First Hand.
First Hand.
Never leave home without it. You can't get it anymore, unfortunately. I mean, look, if you send a message through my site, through Miles Wide, yeah, I'll hook you up with a bottle.
There you go.
And it's dang good lube. I ain't messing around.
Awesome.
First Hand was the name. So,
First Hand.
Yeah, feel the difference firsthand, you know.
The seed money that started it all.
Yeah.
I love it. Senders, thank you so much. Trail Pimp saying, yeah. MTV Nick, great to see everybody. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode with Miles Wide, owner of Mullet Cycles, as well as Miles Wide, the website. Check it out. Check him out on Instagram as well. And we'll have him back on to talk about the Mullet Bikes. It's going to be good. Hope to see you guys soon. Miles, thank you for tuning in, man.
No, man. Thanks for having me. I hope everyone enjoyed it. You know, wasn't a time waster or nothing like that. So.
Oh, it was good, dude. It was good. All right, Senders. We'll see you guys out on the trails. Hope all is well. And see y'all very soon. See you at the top. Here we go.
Cool. Yeah. Was that fun? Was that all right? Not too much.